Coach Dan Palacios of Kinetic Training here on episode 4 of Kinetic Konnections. We have a very, very special guest today. That's T-Max Inc. on Instagram, also known as Patrick McNamara, the headmaster of the University of Baddassery himself. He's going to give us a lesson in basic dude stuff as well as all the other stuff that he does as far as his training. He's a man after my own heart. I've been watching T-Mac for a long time as far as his training methodologies. I'm a strength conditioning coach, so I love the work that he's doing that functionally applies to his work as a special operator in the American military, the Army, and how it translates over to the functionality of everyday civilian life. And let's go ahead and introduce Pat McNamara here so he can give the rundown on some basic dude stuff and all the other stuff we're going to talk about today. Pat.
Right on. Hey, thanks for having me. That was a great intro. I liked your flow there. You covered a lot in a short amount of time, man. University of Baddassery and basic dude stuff. So yeah, appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you here. So, one of the big takeaways that I get or have gotten from watching you all this time is it seems like you've really taken to translating your work as military personnel, as a special operator, and translating that over to civilian life. What has that transition for you been like? I mean, how long have you been, quote unquote, out of the military, so to speak?
Well, before I talk about out, I was in for 22 years, and the entire time was nothing but it was all special ops jobs.
Right.
And I retired in 2005. And the transition, initially the transition was hard, as it is for a lot of guys. I mean, I went for low-hanging fruit as far as like, what kind of job am I going to get? The first job offer that came along, boom, I just snatched it up. Low-hanging fruit. Lesson learned there, because it didn't last long, and I wasted a few really quality years of my life. And then generated my own business in 2010, and then had to deal with a ton of ebbs and flows, because anytime you're working for yourself, you have to expect that, there's going to be good days and bad days, but my worst day working for myself is better than my best day working for corporate America. Yep.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
That's right. Yeah, man. Yep.
And again, transitioning from that special ops world into this for what is has been this unknown world after 22 years of work, you said, what was that like mentally and emotionally, making that shift? And what were some of your anchors that brought you back into some of that mindset while converting yourself over to being a civilian, and then being able to communicate that to other people who are sort of in the field and get them back on track?
Well, there are a whole bunch of questions there. I'm going to try to answer. So first up, without really going into it in depth, during my transition into civilian life, I went through a few really tough years, depression, and it wasn't even recognizable. I didn't even know what was wrong with me. But I was able to pull out of that. And what pulled me out of it was recollecting who I was when I was active. And I said to myself, I have to kind of recreate myself. I have to create that fire again that I had when I was an active special ops guy. And the first step was easy. Just let's get the body in motion. Get the body in motion. Get the body. That's the best medicine for anybody. If you were talking like TBI, depression, any kind of brain type of illness or malfunction, just get that body moving and you're going to feel better. So I just needed one really good day to help jumpstart myself back into the person that I was in a prior lifetime. And what was the next question? Because that was a whole bunch of stuff. Right
Yeah. No. So, and for you, what was one of the main anchors training wise? You say, just get the body in motion. Mm-hmm. What in particular did you kind of sink your teeth into training wise on a daily basis to just go, man, if I just do this or these few things, right? Yep. What were those things?
The easy one for me would be doing some bag work. putting on some gloves and doing some bag work. And I'm not talking, it doesn't have to be heavy bag and just a focus bag where I'm standing in front of that thing and watching that metronome. It's kind of like a metronome of life. And you watching that thing bounce all around, and it's unpredictable which way it's going to go. And, you have an option of sending it in certain directions. So, it's kind of analogous to when you talk about life and this focus bag, this double end bag, because when you hit it, you do have the ability to send it in a certain direction, but it's a double end bag, so it's not necessarily going to go exactly where you want that thing to go. And then where it's coming back is different, so you've got to maintain focus. You've got to that's why it's called a focus bag or double end bag, so you have to maintain that focus. But man, that was always great therapy for me, is just working that double end bag. So that would be my go-to, because everything's getting warmed up too. Hands, arms, feet, calves, quads, shoulders, chest. So yeah, big go-to for me.
Body in motion stays in motion. Body at rest stays at rest. Right.
That's right. Motion is lotion. Mobility equals survivability.
Movement is medicine. Well, I think we can definitely appreciate the survivability factor. That kind of really brings us naturally to our next question, which was, what were some of those sort of specific skills that you brought over from your life as a military operator? I see you do a lot of the survival driven type work between, growing your own food and doing all of that type of stuff. Yeah, I think you even still work on like tourniqueting and things of that nature, right? So
yep.
What were some of those specific skills that you've now integrated into your just personal daily life that you keep sharp in order to keep your, not just the physical blade sharp, but also the mental blade sharp?
Well, one is structure and a mantra of not being late, light, or out of uniform, that kind of thing. So structure. One of the big things I took away was whiteboarding. So I have a yearly planner directly in front of me. I have a monthly planner in my laundry room and a daily planner in my kitchen. So these are big, and that was very similar to how we worked at the unit when I was in Delta. So we had a monthly board, and then so basically a squadron board, a troop board, and then a team board. So I'm doing the same thing, only in a micro fashion and on a personal level, because it worked well for me then. I understood it, so it works well for me now. In addition to the physical stuff, I still try to keep up on fight training. It's harder now with during 2020 and 2021 with COVID and stuff like that, because you can't necessarily mix it up, spar, grapple with people. But that's a big part of my life, is keeping sharp on combative type work. So that's another thing that I brought over with me. And then the stuff that you mentioned, the field craft, right? So all the field craft stuff, the woods orienteering, privation type of training. I still do that a couple times a year, and once a year I go deep into a wilderness area and practice all that privation training and primitive skills type of stuff. It's a real dying art, and I try to make it interesting, and I try to post it up a lot on my social media platforms and share some of that information. Not overwhelm people with it, but just tell them, hey man, this is just basic dude stuff. You should try some of this. You should know these knots. You should know how to make a fire, even with matches. I'm not talking with a stick and a bow, but even with matches, you should know how to make a fire.
And control it.
Yeah, and control it. Right.
Forest fires do harm, don't they?
Yeah, man.
We figured that out this year.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that certainly, I think that's you're definitely right in regards to those being a dying art, and skills that I think people would realize if they took the time to really delve into those and glean some information from someone who's actually done it and actually used it. We're not just talking about learning a useless skill for the sake of learning it.
Right.
I think now we've certainly been we've had to face our mortality and the sort of upper limits of what our society is kind of offering us at this point, and to better understand the skills that we sort of have at a primal level as humans, and go back to those basic dude stuff.
Yep.
Would be really beneficial and really empowering for a lot of people. There's you want to talk about empowerment and the sort of mental aspects of that, but man, jump into a real physical skill, get your hands dirty, get your hands into the clay, and learn to create some stuff with your hands. That's that I think is a really empowering process for a lot of people, and having guys like you to teach it can certainly be change the mindset behind what it is to do stuff like your own gardening and things like that, because a lot of guys are honestly too macho to even think, oh, I'm gonna go garden my own food. No, man.
Yeah, but it's so manly, bro.
You're surviving.
It's one of the most manly things that you could do. Provide for yourself
and your family.
Yes, provide for yourself and your family, dude. That is some manly shit right there.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
and plus it's poetic and it's artistic, which is also pretty freaking manly. Because
warrior poet.
Yes, that's how real men live. These pseudo dudes, these fake dudes, or what my wife calls food. She calls them foods, fake dudes. They feign tough and they might have a bunch of pretty muscle on them because they do curls and bench press. And they're very well manicured and they could talk all the shit, but they have none of those freaking skills whatsoever. None of them. So yeah, I think that is the kind of the personification of manliness, is being able to properly keep yourself fit and maintained, so you could keep your family safe and maintained.
That's the sentinel mindset.
Yeah, it's very sentinel-esque. Yes.
So tell me more about that sentinel concept, and at what point you kind of started to develop that. How long have you been married?
I've been with Rebecca for 8 years. We'll be married in May for 5.
You guys have kids?
I have kids, and they live with us now. So Rebecca's a stepmom.
Yeah.
For the past almost year, she's been a stepmom, and she's freaking kicking ass at that job.
Well, certainly that must have been a big transition. I mean, when you were an operator, you didn't have family, you didn't have kids. So, would you say that was a big I know it was for me personally. It was like my daughter was born and it was like lights went on. It was just like protector mode.
Yeah,
I don't even know what it was. It was at such a deep level. But what was that like for you, going from being this single bachelor military operator to becoming a father and being a married man and all that type?
Same thing. Primal mode kicked in, boom, and you realize there's this little human being that I could hold like this that is 100% dependent on every move that I make. 100%.
Yeah.
This human being cannot, it's not like a baby giraffe that is on its feet and walking as soon as it's birthed. This is a very, very fragile human being that is 100% dependent on me. So yeah, it wasn't long after. My kids were pretty small when I wrote that Sentinel book, which is basically how to be the agent in charge of your own executive protection detail. So you take what an EP does, like Secret Service, State Department, that kind of thing, and you whittle it down to a micro level. So because now your family, your wife, your kids, etc., are your precious cargo. They're your principal. They're your PC. So what can you do to help ensure their day-to-day security? Keeping in mind that we're not freaking paranoid, right? It's not about paranoia. It's just that, we don't plan to fail, but we fail to plan. And when
it's not about living in fear. It's about living empowered in the education.
Yeah. It's
all reality of the world, right?
It's all peace of mind. I've had too many people say, bro, you're just paranoid. When I used to run the Sunday Sentinel sermons, bro, you're paranoid. No. I'm just prepared. It's peace of mind. I mean, I'm a prepper too. I don't think that there's going to be a zombie apocalypse, but man, it is great peace of mind. And shit does happen, Power does go out.
I think
Water
we
does
figured
stop
that out
flowing.
recently,
Yep.
didn't we?
Yep. An entire state found that out
Yeah.
recently. And how many of them got caught with their pants down? Most of them did.
Get too comfortable and Mother Nature will let you know that you're too comfortable.
Yep. Exactly.
That's for sure. So, as far as your actual physical training, let's talk about combat strength and what that looks like for you. What does that program boil down to as far as the aspects of, for instance, I work with a lot of police academy preppers. So people who are preparing to go into police academy, they're trying to get hired by an agency, or people who are getting ready for boot camp, that type of thing. What does that program look like, starting at the most basic of basic and then progressing through its advanced levels?
So I started developing it while I was still active. And then when I got out, I got my, piece of paper and NASM. So that way, if I wanted to sell a book or something, I had some credentials. Yes, right. And then started writing articles for Recoil magazine, and then built a ebook around that and a website and programming. It was an evolutionary process, right? So it evolved. I just didn't have an epiphany one day or read somebody's book. I allowed this thing to develop, and it was malleable. So now it's a very structured process and program that is also very malleable. Let me give you examples. So it's performance based, number one.
Absolutely.
So performance recognizes that we all perform differently, and performance can be measured by doing what we can with what we have, right? So it's not outcome based, which is basically execution with consideration of the consequence. Will I succeed or will I fail?
Right.
So it's designed for everybody, right? Full skill set disparity. It's designed for everybody.
Basic human stuff.
Right. Basic human stuff. Yes. And it says this: all we have to do is make incremental improvements. So if you cloned yourself yesterday, can you kick your clone's ass tomorrow? Right. Incremental improvements, incremental. And then you also have to understand why am I exercising? So it's the self-motivation. 4 reasons, right? There's 4 reasons, in my opinion, why we should exercise, why we should keep it in motion. Number 1, we've talked about it, is self-preservation, longevity. Stronger, longer. Motion is lotion. Number 2, the ability to save your own life. Number 3, and sentinel-esque, the ability to save somebody else's life. Number 4, the ability to kick somebody's ass. So
in the process of saving your own life, and
right, you never know. You never, right, or in the process of saving somebody else's life. But when I explain that to people, they go, "Oh man, you're right." And sometimes I'll get emotional with people who are, let's say they're in their late 30s, they're extremely overweight, life happened to them, and now they have little kids. And I'll say, "Hey, bro, you got to be around for those little kids.
And your grandkids."
Yes, you got to be around for them. And that resonates so well with them. I'll see that same guy months later, and they'll have dropped 30 or 40 pounds, and said, "Bro, I listened to what you say, and I'm working on these 4 things, those 4 reasons to work out." Along with that program, I break the work week down into days. So that way it gives the user a little bit of focus, because for me, I need focus. I was an ADD child, so I still need that. I still need focus and structure. So this provides me with that, because you break the work week down into a power day, a strength day, a speed and quickness day, hypertrophy day, and a skills day. So today, for instance, is a speed and quickness day for me. So when I go to bed last night, I'm already thinking Wednesday is speed and quickness day. And I'll try to start gen up ideas. I want to think about, what am I going to do? What haven't I done recently? But I want that focus going into it. So now that I have the work week broken down, a big part of the planning is already done for me. Because a lot of people, if they don't have schooling or they've read books on working out, guys just think they know how to exercise. Like they think they know how to run their barbecue pit in their backyard. But
and then it blows up like a mushroom cloud in their face.
Yeah, right. I mean, the thing is, we have to exercise now because we don't have we're not required to walk 25 miles a day, build rock walls, hunt for our food,
Absolutely.
and fight off our enemies. So that was a part of our primal life, but we don't have that primal life anymore. So we have to do these things to supplement that. And uh so I the focus is taken care of because you know what day is which. And then to mitigate excuses, a couple of those days could be lumped if guys just say, hey, I don't have 5 days. Well, guess what? No speed, no power. So you could do power and speed and quickness on the same day.
Absolutely.
Strength and hypertrophy, there's a lot of crossover there. So now you're down to 3 days. That's all you need, because
Right.
you've lumped speed and speed and power and strength and hypertrophy. So now you have those 2 days and a skills day. And skills is basically anything that you suck at. So we guys are very good at practicing what we are good at. So find the shit that you're not good at. It could be hand and eye coordination. It could be bouncing a ball.
Cognitive vision training. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
man. It could be throwing with your right hand, catching with your left, throwing with your left, catching with your right. It could be, spatial awareness. It could be neuroplasticity type of stuff, and balance and kinesthetic awareness and proprioception, because those things we neglect. We neglect those.
Absolutely.
And it used to be a way of life in our primal being, but it's not.
Right.
Not.
It's just not built into our everyday. We walk on mostly level surfaces. We get up, get into our car, get into our office,
Mhm.
whatever your daily sort of movement profile tends to look like. I say life is a sport. Your body biomechanically and physiologically is a product of those things that you execute repetitively on a daily basis. So if you're doing this all day,
Mhm.
then that's what your body's going to produce, right? So we've got to do something, go out of our way to build it into our routine, to be slamming Banff hammers and punching bags and stabbing stuff and digging holes up out of the ground and pulling stuff, from here to there and up to, up over our heads. So, from a programming and specificity standpoint, what does the combat strength program look like as far as the movement patterns, some of the rep schemes, things like that? I don't want to steal your special juice or anything like that.
No, it's good.
Give people a sense of what it is they'd be getting into when we drop the linkage and everything like that.
So another excuse that I mitigate is time. Right? Time is a big one. Guys say I don't have time. They'll say I don't have money. They'll say I don't have a facility. So I try to mitigate all of those excuses, because I am way more minimalistic now. When I first wrote combat strength training, there was a lot of Olympic lifts in it. A lot of them. But now there's very few, as it has evolved. It's become more minimalistic. I have a recipe too. It says to work in anaerobic chunks in circuit to near metabolic threshold to meet an aerobic goal. So your target workout time is about 30 minutes. That's it.
Right.
That doesn't include your warm up, because you need a good warm up. You need full body motion from 5 to 10 minutes, full body motion.
Get those juices flowing.
Yeah, man. And especially the older you get, you have to do that stuff. So I'm post 50. I'll be 56 in 2 weeks.
Move like a jungle cat.
Yeah, man. Thanks. It's come with a lot of trial and error, and I haven't had a cushy life. I mean, 22 years special ops, I retired with 4 reconstructive surgeries, 13 broken bones, 2 concussions, TBI. So, so I was banged up.
Basically, everybody can shut down their excuses and get to work, because they don't got what you got.
Yeah, man. So I'm a human barometer, and my warm up is now about 20 minutes. It's no longer 5. It's about 20.
What does that tend to look like for you warming up? I think that's an area that people are somewhat confused about, even though we try to make it as simple as possible. There's a certain mindset that should go into warming up that not just includes increasing the heart rate and creating that plasticity and mobility in the muscles, but also getting the central nervous system revved up. What do you do to get yourself not just physically revved up, but mentally revved up during that warm up time?
Cool. So number one, I crank up the metal. I crank up the heavy metal. I'm a metalhead, and so I crank that up. and I do some breathing. I walk initially, just up and down because my gym, for those of you who don't know me, my gym is now in my driveway, and it's going to be there for probably the rest of my life. I am never going back to a gym again. I love it because now I have to endure weather, blazing hot, 95 degrees in the summer, and last week 34 and raining.
You're based where again?
North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm in South Florida, so I know exactly how you feel.
Right. So, the winters here are cold and wet.
I don't know.
Right. The summers are similar to what you have. So I'll just walk up and down my driveway and deep breathe and listen to the metal to get my brain prepped. And while I'm doing that, I think about how I'm going to build my workout. Take power day, for example. I'll think, all right, what movements haven't I done late? Because a big goal of mine is trying to recognize voids. What do I suck at? What are some movements I could do that are safe, efficient, effective, and combat relevant? Because I don't want to break myself. I don't want to do some movement that's going to hurt me, because it's called fitness, not brokeness. I want to maintain a level of fitness for a long time. Too many people get hurt while they're exercising, which is idiotic. And then when I think about the movements, I will replicate those movements in slow motion and with lightweight. So let's say it's a thing from your right side up overhead to your left side, whatever that is.
Right.
From the ground up, I will replicate that for 1 or 2 minutes on both sides. Replicate that same movement, and I'll know it. I'll know when the body says, "Yep, you are ready to go explosive. You are ready to go ballistic." You have to listen to your body. And if you've been maintaining a level of fitness for decades, it's easier to do. You could hear your body say, nope, don't do that. Get some more warm up, start really light. And then you could also hear your body go, nope, you're ready to light the fuse, bro.
Grip it and rip it.
Yeah. Grip it and rip it. Bingo. Fire for effect.
Yeah. Full auto. Yeah. I mean,
yep.
I think if anyone who and those out there who are watching or gonna watch this who haven't seen your stuff will see you work with some really unique and dynamic stuff. Some of the stuff that I've introduced you to, as well as some of the stuff you've introduced me to just watching your stuff. So what are some of those tools that you work with that just really keep it dynamic for you and still work those basic functional primal movement patterns of squat, lunge, hinge, twist, yada yada yada, and they all still fit within the combat strength protocols, but now allow you to have just more versatility and options and creativity and just more fun, right? I mean, it's fun to slam a 40-pound BAMF hammer, right?
Dude, and that's a big part of it. So I'm glad you brought that up, because training needs to be comprehensive, systematic, and progressive, but it should also be interesting. You shouldn't feel like you're stuck in a rut. It shouldn't be mundane, and it should not be routine, because routine is the playground of a dull mind. And just like you said, hunched over and on a computer all day long, the same thing with working out. We fall into a rut of complacent adaptation when we're doing the same shit over and over and over again. So I'm glad you said fun, because you want that workout, you want it to be fun, man, because it's going to bring you back. It's like hitting a good golf drive. It's like, damn, man, that was fun. I need to do that again. It's like sex. It's like, holy freaking cow, that was awesome. I have to do that again immediately. So, there's a lot of crossover with that stuff. So yeah, I want it to be fun and interesting. And that's my bird clock there.
Yeah, I got my kids running around downstairs, so it just is what it is.
No worries. So tools, you're talking like tangible tools?
Yeah, the actual equipment,
mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
So of course I market my own bands. I'm a big fan of resistance bands, and I need to send you some too. So
I gotta get me some, get you some inertia waves. I have my inertia waves.
Yep.
I gotta get some of yours, and then
mine are just the the resistance bands. Not yep. So I'm a big fan of those, and then I have some of my favorites, of course, are the Sornik CMBs, so just the round center mass bells. I love those. They're so much you could do with them. And I have 20s and 40s. That's all I need, because those are primarily power. And with power, you don't need a lot of weight, right? Because
velocity is what you need.
Right. Yes. You need speed. No speed, no power.
The velocity creates more weight anyway.
Yep.
That's what people don't understand.
Right. Yeah. I have a balance equipment. I have a portable slack line and a balance table that somebody fashioned for me.
Oh,
I
that's the
have,
platform with the chains, correct?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yep. So, I mean, it doesn't take long to get smoked on that. You could just do curls on that thing.
Absolutely.
And now you're running into muscle recruitment and you're like, why am I I've only been on this for 5 minutes and I'm exhausted. And then, dude, the aqua training bag is badass. That's money. I had no idea how much fun I'd have with that.
How much you like that sensor, huh?
Yeah, it's well, that's one of those things that keeps you coming back.
Goal oriented, baby.
Yeah.
Data,
so you look at,
valuable.
right. You look at, your average punches and the poundage behind them. And because training comprehensive, systematic, and progressive, you want to show that progression in training. And unless that you're taking notes or you have data, you really don't know, so but I love that thing. I love my focus bag. I have a sandbag that I fill with rubber mulch. That's invaluable. I have one of those kabuki trap bars. That's okay, but it's very traditional weights, and I'm not. I am very transverse plane of motion guy.
Right.
Right. And I have the Sornex off-grid rack, because you need a rack to front load stuff, to do pull-ups, that kind of thing, because those are necessary. And I don't do back squats anymore. I only do front squats, because number one, it replicates more real world movement. Number two, it requires less weight and they suck a lot. Because back squats, for me, I realized, hey, this is kind of an ego driven exercise. How many freaking 45-pound plates can I put on both sides?
I think if you use the Kabuki transformer bar, you might change your mind, though, man. I love that. I'm a big Kabuki guy myself. I have the trap bar too, and I love all the transverse stuff that you can do with it, because you can spin it and turn it. But certainly, yeah. I mean, that's really where a guy like you can go. Here, in my experience, doing what I've done for all this time, this is what works best for me. If you want to do back squats, go ahead and do back squats. Go for it. But for what works for you and what your body has experienced on a daily basis, your life is a sport, front squats work best for you. So that's what you do. And I mean, I'm sure you can identify the moment you go with a movement that your body doesn't love, you definitely feel. That's like me with long distance running, man. I'm like, my body hates this. Why am I going to keep doing this to myself?
I did a movement yesterday. And one of the things don't get me wrong about that Kabuki trap bar. I love it, because there's days when, for me, there's days when very, very heavy is necessary,
Absolutely.
It's necessary. Even at 56 years old, I don't want to get jacked up. I don't need to freaking prove to somebody how much I could deadlift, because I don't want my intestines shooting out of my asshole. But you still have to go heavy. Hold on, you asked something. The running. Yeah, so I did a movement yesterday and I went, holy shit, man. It was with the Banff hammer, because I love those things. And it was overhead behind the back and pulling it back this way, nice and slow. And I realized how weak I was right there. If you go back and watch that video, you'll see me when I'm pulling it back over my head.
That Banff hammer will expose you real quick.
Yep. So I love trying to recognize voids, because, like I said, I'm adamantly opposed to that. How guys are very good at practicing what they're good at. I don't want to do that. I don't want to fall into that rut.
Well,
I want to find
thing, right? I mean,
yeah.
Emotionally, there's a lot of guys in the lifting world who are transitioning over to being sort of like pseudo life coaches and manliness coaches and things of that nature. And they talk about what it means to be effeminate and the definition of that. And really that it has a lot to do with your own quote unquote definition of ego and what your ego amounts to, really. And a lot of that really boils down to, I'm going to focus on what I'm only on what I'm good at. And if I'm not good at it, then I'm not even going to bother with it. Well, I mean, there's a time and a place to be working on your weaknesses, and certainly having tools like the BAMF hammer, for instance, that'll very quickly expose those weaknesses. I think it takes a really humble mindset to go that route and go, you know what, I'm gonna intentionally take time to attack my weaknesses, and maybe they'll never become my strengths, or maybe they will. You just never know until you actually go for it. So what are some of those areas that you've intentionally delved into that at first you were like, man, this is something I don't even want to do, but I'm gonna keep trying it, and it actually becomes something that you actually take on and love.
And when you do that stuff, it's very good brain food, when you're tricking your body, when your body has to learn new things,
like exposure therapy.
Oh man, yeah, right. And it's good. It's what, like you said, ego therapy too, because dude, I freaking suck at this shit right now. So like, for instance, my balance table, I remember getting on it one day and I ended up videoing it, but what people didn't see is the countless repetitions of me practicing this movement. And it was so simple. It was a very simple movement. You're just on one foot in an L shape. So you've got your, your leg, horizontal to the ground and your upper body horizontal to the ground. And you're on one leg. So your body's like a T shape. And with the opposite side, you're doing a single arm pull.
Yep.
So now you have
the table shaking like this.
Right. And the table shaking at the same time. So even on stable ground, that's very difficult. But as I was doing that and I kept falling over, I said to myself, just give your body permission to listen to your mind, and give your mind permission to tell your body to learn how to do this, because it's going to happen. This is not impossible. And once I did that and started, taking deep centering breaths and just letting, trying to put the analytical mind aside and allowing the body and the machinery to work, it got pretty freaking easy. It was amazing. Just let me give you permission. Brain, you have permission to tell my body how to work, because that's what you've been doing for millions of years or hundreds of thousands of years. So I am not going to get in your way with this. Yeah, it's all the time, every day I'll come up with some kind of new,
funky, new, different.
Right. Yep. And to the average Joe, he's looking at it and going, but guys like you and guys in the fitness world see that and they go, oh man, I know that. Like balancing a kettlebell on end, a 50-pound kettlebell, balancing that sucker on its end. Just that alone is very hard for most people. Now you do it on one foot. Now you do it on one foot on a balance table. That's the unstable table.
Well, I know for sure, I look at myself, I was a football guy. I played football from the time I was little. And luckily I really never got injured, but I attribute a lot of that to my dad having been really functional in his training mindset, coming from the track world and things like that. And even though I work with a lot of tactical operators, I was never military. I'm not law enforcement. I understand it well because I've worked with so many of them.
Yep.
So, I look at myself and I look at these young kids that I train with, and I'm like, man, if I knew even a small fraction of what I'm delivering to you on a silver platter, right? Take it from me. This stuff will make you better. What is some of that stuff that you can glean to those people who are, just getting into military law enforcement or are already in it, but they got a long way to go in their career, that you could say, look, man, if you change the trajectory of your physical training now, it can entirely change the way your body responds to getting out and transitioning into civilian life and all of that stuff that we've already talked about. What kind of information can you glean for those types of people?
I would tell them to take good advantage of the interwebs, follow guys like you, like me, like there's tons of dudes out there putting out free information.
Free.
I scan all.
Well, none of it's for free. You know that.
Right. Yes, of course. Yeah.
It's costing us a lot.
But it's free to the consumer.
Absolutely.
To the consumer, it's free.
Absolutely.
And because I'm doing that. And when I replicate somebody's movement, I ping him. I give him credit for it. I say, thanks to so-and-so for, showing me this. The other thing is get out of the bodybuilder mode, because that's how guys think working out should be, via Muscle and Fitness magazine, right? Bench press and curls. Dude, you can't.
Most jack guys are doing it, so we should do it, right?
Yeah. you can't bench press your way out of a burning building, and you can't do those exercises in isolation because you're doing more harm than good. There are three types of people who work in isolation. Three types, right? So let's say isolation. I mean, like doing um, leg extensions or bicep curls on a preacher bench. Three types of people. One, you're a professional bodybuilder, man. That's your sport. You have to do that stuff because hypertrophy is every day for you. Number two, you're recovering from surgery and atrophy. It's called physical therapy. Number three, you got no fucking idea what you're doing. So stay away from those. Don't worry about and stay away from the ego stuff. People still ask me how much I bench press. I can't even tell you the last time I've done a bench press. Right. I have no idea. And I don't remember. I remember when I was doing, sets with 315. I remember that, in my 30s. But man, those days been long gone for a long time.
When was the last time you laid down flat, had someone lay on your hands and evenly benched them up in a nice, slow, controlled motion, right?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, that's certainly I think that's one of those areas, and I mean, even in the military, right? They boot camp and even special operations level. I mean, they do training that is geared and specific towards that particular task and skill. But I think there is room for altering that programming to be more joint friendly, more performance friendly, while increasing performance and reducing the risk of injury and getting that more focused short burst intensity that you get out of the type of training that you're showing in combat strength that I often work with my type of people, that is focused on short bursts of high intensity over a duration of weeks, months, years. Will create that long-term effect of what it is you've got. I mean, you could probably put the rucksack on and go and get it done with the best of them as far as spec ops is concerned, right? Because you have those years of skill and experience that allow you to be efficient and be focused on the necessary force required and the necessary energy required to achieve this given task, whatever the goal or the operation is for that particular operation you guys happen to be executing at that time. But that comes with the experience of doing the job. The training itself should enhance that process, right? Not impede it, right? You said, it's not about hurting yourself. It's about making yourself better. So I think that's an area where I would love to see more of the tactical operators who are fitness and training minded come together and start to create programs for the military as a whole. And begin to change that mindset from the old Cooper testing and all. That's all great. You need standards, but at the same time, I would love to see more of our American military and tactical athletes benefiting from a change in the higher up, status of the training, because that's a big thing that I see with especially the law enforcement that I deal with. These guys are getting hurt just from doing the training, and it's like that's an issue with programming to me as a strength coach.
Yeah. So you touched on a couple things: injury and programming. Another thing I would tell those younger guys, is just be weary of gimmicky type of workout, fatty workouts. Like if you work out, for instance, in a CrossFit gym, it's not necessary that you capitulate to the whiteboard. You don't have to be subservient to the whiteboard. Do those group workouts once, maybe twice a week, but because their programming sucks most of the time. It sucks. They replicate the
specificity of the task that individual might be working towards. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
You're a CrossFit competitor. Hey,
right. Bingo.
Get ready.
Yes.
Get ready.
If you're a CrossFit competitor, a CrossFit athlete, then do that shit because that is your sport. But for average Joe, for regular people, I did the combat strength training, my programming out of a CrossFit gym for 4 years. So every once in a while I would do their WOD, but very rarely, because I had my own focus. And then I would build alternatives, because I'm looking at their programming. I'm going, that's not right. They did sort of the same shit yesterday, So I would tell guys who are like pushing 40 or over 40, I'd say, hey, Dave, don't do what's on there. You're going to hurt yourself. there's too much stress to the shoulders, lower back, or whatever it is. I said, I built an alternative over here, and it's going to save the day. And they'd say, but the whiteboard says it. And then he does it, and then he hurts his shoulder,
ego lifting.
Yep. So, just I don't like to poo-poo. It's not my intent to poo-poo CrossFit, because there's a purpose there, and they've done a lot of good for the fitness world, but don't capitulate to the whiteboard. Yeah. That's my point. Don't be subservient to it.
Well, yeah. I guess that goes into the process of also know thyself, right? Understanding that you are an individual going, and I tell this to clients all the time. Look, you want to take a class, any kind of class, spinning class, Pilates class, bar, whatever, Orange Theory, go for it. But know yourself well enough to not capitulate to the whiteboard, and know yourself well enough to know how to modify according to what we've spent countless hours going over in the one-on-one training session. And the same thing applies to any given specific skill that you need to develop from a physical perspective, whether you're any kind of athlete, tactical athlete, or a traditional athlete. Focus your training not only from a general primal movement perspective, but also on the specific skills and tasks at hand. That could be throwing a ball, that could be, slinging a lacrosse stick, whatever that is. You have to train for that, and you have to teach the body to be strong through its full range of motion required to execute that skill at your fullest potential. And there's a lot of great alternative ways to do that other than a barbell. I mean, that's the main reason I do what I do with kinetic training, is to find those tools that anyone can identify with and just do a better job of training with that tool. It might not be a barbell. It might not be a dumbbell. It could be a band hammer. It could be an aqua training bag. If that's something that's going to make you more successful, go for it. It
could be a cinder block.
Right. A cinder block, and again, for the folks out there who deal with that kind of tool on a daily basis, man, you better bet your butt you better be working with that type of thing and understand what it feels like in your hand to grip it from every different angle and work with it, because that specificity is important. Your central nervous system, your brain, and your body adapt to those things and develop skill and get a lot stronger that way when you do it.
Yep. Very cool. Yeah. So the other thing that I would tell guys like who are young is work a lot in the transverse plane, because most guys live in a sagittalistic environment. It's a cool word I made up. Sagittalis. Yes.
Out,
right.
Forward, back.
Yep. They live in that world.
We don't do this.
Right. Yeah. And I like to say that life-saving and ass kicking take place in the transverse plane. When I give a CST class, I ask the guys, I say, what out of sagittal, frontal, and transverse, what do you think is most important? And they all say transverse. I say, now, second question, when we exercise, which plane of motion is most neglected? Transverse. I say, absolutely.
You should be ashamed.
Beat your boots, bro. Yeah,
rotational, man. It's I can't think of one athletic skill that doesn't involve rotating and shifting weight from one side of the body. That's the wet method guys, right? And teaching that fluid, relaxed movement versus that high intensity compressive versus the strength driven type stuff. It's everywhere really when you think about it. And if you apply it consistently, you'll see huge changes. I mean, the best way I think to test that really is stuff like the aqua training bag, right? Working that general warm up, getting your body, ready and warmed up and getting the tensility and all that stuff in the muscles, but then working some intentionally transverse movements, getting your baseline on the aqua training bag, getting that power, what that looks like in your first round when you didn't do the priming movements, and then do some of that rotational movement with your bands or whatever type of elastic type training, or even dumbbell training, that's fine too, and see that difference in the amount of power your body's producing when it learns to efficiently transfer force from one side of the body to the other. You'll actually see those numbers come up significantly. And it's pretty impressive when it does happen.
Yep, absolutely.
It's like hitting a home run. You barely even feel it. And that's the crazy part about it is when a skill is executed properly, you really don't even notice that you did it. That's
Yep.
the crazy part, is it feels like you did nothing. I mean, like watching Usain Bolt run down the track, it's like, this guy doesn't even look like he's trying.
Yeah, because and the big reason is because those skills are etched in the hard drive so that these athletes can access them at a subconscious level, because they've done so many times what's called meaningful practice or deep thought practice.
Right.
You know, and they know that, man, this is how many reps it's going to take me. You know, how many strides it's going to take me, how many of this hammer throw
The
it's going
body
to take me.
knows it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, so that way now I just have to once again set the analytical mind aside and just let the body work at this point.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
that shit takes freaking work, man. And a lot of people, hard work sucks, and not everybody's cut out for it. You know, that's another thing I say. But if you perform those proper amount of meaningful repetitions, those skills will be etched in the hard drive, and you could and it'll be an intuitive or subconscious level driven task.
Well, that's, yeah, I like to communicate that with everyone. It's like, if you invest the time, it doesn't have to be hard work right out of the gate, right?
Right.
It's the hard part is I think the consistency that comes with it.
Yes.
But if you really apply it properly and progressively, like you said, over time, you can make hard work look an awful lot like easy work. And that's one of my favorite parts about it is for instance, like working some of the firearms type stuff. That was not one of my areas of comfort starting out. And now, you know, going from hitting the inertia waves, hitting the BAMF hammer, hitting the aqua training bag, and then boom, having the gun holstered up and ready to go, ready to start drawing and firing right away with my heart rate up and doing that simulated stress work. I got a lot more comfortable with it when I figured out what my baseline was like, when my body was nice and relaxed and I really wasn't even tuned in. But then doing the simulated stress work actually over time focused me a lot more.
Yep.
And forced me to line it up and be intentional and take my time doing it. So I think that's one of those areas that just about any tactical athlete will be able to really make some huge improvements if they focus their training on that specificity of a lot of what you're showing in combat strength. So I want to make sure that people are, we'll drop all the links and everything that's needed to check that stuff out, and so people can sign up for what it is you're doing with everything that you're doing. But Pat, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about all this stuff. I think it's going to be a lot of great information for everybody who's out there and wants to know more about just what you do from a general training perspective. But man, to get your insights on the inside world of training as a tactical operator, man, that's going to be invaluable to a lot of the tactical athletes that I work with. So that's one of my biggest passions is working with those folks. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, man.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me on here. It was a good, it was fun chewing the fat and talking about this stuff because because it could, like you said, help a lot of, it could help a lot of people out. And that's when you're helping somebody out, it's very fulfilling. So.
But yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest common denominators I'm seeing with all of you guys who are in that coaching mindset, having left the operators world and now being a coach to other people isn't that what it's really all about, helping other people, right?
Yep. It should be.
It should be, right? Well, yeah, man, I think you're definitely on the right track, and I'm certainly happy to make sure that people are going to see this and get it out there for everybody. So, brother, I appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, everybody go check out tmaxinc.com. That's where you'll be able to find everything that Pat McNamara has available between his merchandise and his training programs, not just from the physical training perspective, but also a lot of the mental and emotional training that he's doing as well. So make sure to go check that out if you're a tactical athlete or civilian, because there's a lot of tremendous information to check out there. So we'll drop all the links, everything in there. Follow TMAX Inc. on Instagram, and we'll see you next time. Y'all live kinetically.
Right on.
Love it.
Cool. Thanks.